We've drawn a couple of other spring flowers so far, so this time let's do tulips. Let's sketch tulip flowers at a few different stages and from different angles. For the first one I'm sketching an oval shape, and then the individual petals. Tulips have 3 outer petals and 3 inner petals, but they're not all showing from this angle. I suggest sketching with a light, hard pencil like an H, so that the sketch is easier to erase when you're refining it and getting rid of the guidelines. I'm using an HB so you can hopefully see the sketch a little better, cause what I see while filming is not what the camera sees, so it's always a bit of a surprise how the sketching part turns out. Tulips have quite a thick stem, and let's do 2 or 3 leaves on each flower stem. They're long with a sharp point and they might be upright or folded and flop to the side. The second one is still an unopened flower bud, so it's more of a tear shape. There are 2 unopened petals visible with a bit of green showing through in between them. The third one is less from the side and a little more from the top, so we can see inside the flower, and all of the 6 petals are visible, alternating between an inner and an outer petal. Now that we've sketched out all of them, let's clean them up a bit by erasing the unnecessary lines, like the ovals and tear shapes we used as guides, and the parts where things overlap. I'm using a kneaded eraser here, which doesn't produce any eraser dust. Now let's refine the outlines of the petals and leaves. I'm using a mechanical pencil for this. And for erasing some thinner lines, I'm using the eraser at the end of the mechanical pencil, since it's more precise than the kneaded eraser. We'll go into the shading next, but I'm thinking, should I also do flower sketching videos where we just do an outline drawing like this? And maybe very minimal coloring or shading, particularly for some flowers with interesting shapes, like lilies for example. I could see that as a repeating pattern. Anyway, these tulips are two-tone, orange and yellow, so I'm adding in a bit of that color pattern too. The bottom of the petal has a kind of a yellow triangle, so I'll draw that shape, as well as drawing the parts where the petals are folded on top. And then color in the rest where the petal is orange with a light pencil and pressing it very lightly as well to show the color pattern. And start shading the parts of the petals that are away from the light and the parts inside the flower. Also using the lightest or hardest pencil first and then building the contrast. I'm shading the petals to make it clearer that they're curved inwards into the flower, so I'm shading the edges mostly. We can switch to a softer pencil like HB and do some of the darker shading on smaller areas on the edges of the petals inside the flower and separate the petals with sharp thin lines and some softer shading under them. Let's do the darkest shading with an even softer pencil. I happen to grab 7B, but it doesn't matter which one it is exactly. Adding darker shading in the middle inside the flower by pressing the pencil harder, under and inside some of the petals and a bit on the tips of the petals. Let's do the same for the leaves. Some of them appear to have a sharper line down the middle, so let's shade that dark and then lighten the shading towards the edges of the leaf. A bit of shading for the stems under the flowers. Some other leaves have a softer curve, so we can shade them with a softer gradient. And shading the parts where the leaves overlap. Add shading on the stem too, on the parts where the leaves overlap the stems, which I forgot to do while filming. Next we can add some shading to the sides of the stem to make it look round like a cylinder. You can turn the paper upside down if it makes it easier to get to the parts you need to shade, rather than draw in an awkward position. I'm trying to keep it in place just because I'm filming this. But how about drawing another spring flower next? Here's a video about drawing daffodils. See you there!